right, guys, welcome to episode 237 of the podcast. Today we have Ahawk with Haven Protocol. Ahawk, how you doing today?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me, Brandon. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Ahawk is choosing to stay anonymous, which is why you see the glowing white H. So you won't see him physically, but you will hear him. Um, Anyways, before we jump into Haven, there's a lot of things I'd love to talk about and get to know with what you guys are doing. Tell me a bit about yourself as much as you want to. I know you're trying to stay anonymous, but in terms of like your background, work, history, um, how, what have you done before? How did you get into crypto and blockchain and to where you are now?
Sure. Yeah. So appreciate you having me on. And I think, there's Haven Protocol is obviously a privacy project and built on Monero. And so the vast majority of our community, cares a lot about staying anonymous online and certainly about, protecting their financial privacy. So that's why you get to talk to the floating H today instead of a face. But I think, one of the reasons that I got into Haven several years ago was because it became pretty clear to me as an investor, a trader that got really active in crypto in 2016 and 2017 that just weren't very many privacy tools on the market that allowed you sort of maintain your anonymity when it came to investing and trading in crypto. And so the more I went down this rabbit hole, I realized there were only a few, really solid innovations in the space that did things different and sort of upheld the promise of, keeping your money private. And Monero was the most obvious one and sort of the gold standard in privacy projects, in my view. And so I went down the Monero rabbit hole for a while. And I think the thing that got me most interested in Haven was, after earning a little bit money as an investor and a trader, the thing that was most obvious about the crypto space was its volatility. And every crypto, whether it was Bitcoin or Ethereum or Monero or tiny cap projects, have massive volatility day to day, week to week, month to month. And when I came to started to figure out how I was going to preserve trading gains, protect investments, I realized that I needed to use stablecoins. And I think that became obvious to lots of people around the same time in 2017 and 2018, and especially during the bear market that lasted throughout 2018. But then the thing that was obvious to me as somebody who cared about privacy was that there wasn't a private stablecoin. It just didn't exist. And I don't even really think back then people talked about the idea of a private stablecoin as something that was worth doing. And so that's kind of when Haven came along, and it immediately drew my attention as an obvious need for me personally and for the market, I think broadly. At the time, I'm not sure anybody cared about it. I think people care a lot more about these issues today than they did, 3 years ago. And that's how I got started. So Haven was launched in 2018. Didn't really get off the ground until sort of the community took over the project in 2019, and we launched the first private stablecoin built on Monero in 2020. So that's kind of the short version.
Nice. What's your role with Haven?
So I'm a volunteer. I've been a part of the community since late 2018, 2019, and I sort of help with our communication stuff, manage the community, answer questions, and certainly try and get the word out about what we've built, why we think it's unique, and why we think more people should use it, and give them sort of hopefully the knowledge to figure out how to use it for themselves.
Nice. So through Haven, you guys have built this private stablecoin. I don't know if I've heard a lot about private stablecoins yet, so that is actually pretty interesting. Is that like the main product coming out of the Haven protocol?
Yes. So
Okay.
Haven is its own chain, and it can be confusing sometimes. We have multiple assets on the same chain, but the base currency for Haven is XHV, and that's the volatile coin that trades on exchanges and goes up and down in price. And we have what we've built on top of that is an ecosystem of algorithmic private stablecoins. So if you're familiar with the Luna model, it's probably closest to the Luna UST model, where you burn Luna and receive UST based on the market price of Luna. It's exactly what happens in Haven. The protocol will burn XHV, and you'll get an amount of XUSD, which is our first private stablecoin, based on the market price. And you can mint and burn back and forth from those two. And then from XUSD, you can mint a bunch of other private stablecoins, private euros, private gold, private silver. We even have a private Bitcoin synthetic as well. So it's an ecosystem that's being built out with a focus, first and foremost, on keeping addresses, balances private.
Okay, so it's more than just the stablecoin. It's also private assets and other private currencies.
Yeah, absolutely. So that there's private stablecoins like XUSD and XEuro, which are going to hold their value in those currencies. And then there's private assets like XAG, XAU, private silver, private gold, and XBTC, private Bitcoin, that are essentially tracking the price of those assets, but on a private Monero-based chain.
Got it. Tell me more about private stablecoins. How do those work through Haven, and what are the benefits of having a private stablecoin?
Sure. So I think, we like to describe Haven as a rabbit hole, because it's like once you start thinking about these issues and the utility that you can get by actually using a private stablecoin, the options are sort of endless. And I think the biggest thing for people to realize, and it's something that took me a little while to realize, and I think it takes everybody a little while to realize when they get into crypto and start trading and investing, is everything on Bitcoin and Ethereum is entirely public. Your financial history is there for the world to see, for anybody to see, and for the most part, that's not a problem. We give up a lot. We make a lot of trade-offs in our life when it comes to privacy and all sorts of stuff just sitting on our iPhone that tracks us every single day. And we make that trade-off because our phones and our technology provides all sorts of incredible benefits. But when it comes to crypto, it's a little different. People are investing and storing their wealth in cryptocurrencies, and increasingly in stablecoins like Tether and USDC. And if just those two stablecoins, Tether and USDC, have a combined, I don't know, over 100 billion market. So Tether's like 80 billion, USDC is like 50 billion, so 130 billion in stablecoins just in those two, and a bunch more. Every single transaction using those stablecoins is public, trackable, traceable, and if somebody knows your address, if somebody finds out where you store your money, they can see every transaction you've ever made. And that's a little terrifying. It's different than Google being able to target an ad maybe for you. This is really talking about your finances, your wealth, your entire financial picture. So that's really why we started working on this. And when I say we, I'm not a developer. We've got a really smart group of developers that have been working on this for a long time, and it was a really difficult challenge. But the goal was really simple: allow people to use stablecoins, allow people to store their wealth without having every single transaction, every balance, every address be completely transparent on the chain.
Got it. Tell me more about, I guess, the importance of anonymity, because that's a very controversial thing these days, especially around finance.
Sure.
What's the justification for anonymity around finance, and what some of those concerns are?
Yeah, I think it's really simple. People try and make it out to be something that it's not. And, people criticize Monero and other privacy projects as something that are just tools for criminals, people doing illicit activities. I think that's just ridiculous, frankly. I log into my bank account or my checking account, and I use a password and a Face ID and a CAPTCHA and 5 other things that protect my ability to access my money, right? Nobody else can go log into my bank account. Nobody else can see what I spent, on my credit card yesterday, in theory, because I have privacy through those platforms. And I don't think it should be any different in crypto, right? I don't think it should be default public that everybody sees every trade you made, every investment you've made, every NFT you've purchased. I think it's really dangerous. And I think more and more people are starting to realize, okay, hold on. When it comes to my financial life, everything in crypto is completely different than the way, I would secure my money in a bank or want to protect my, my privacy when it comes to money. And that doesn't really exist in crypto. It hasn't really become a priority, but I think that's changing because people recognize that they want to protect the things that they do, not because they're doing something illegal or illicit, but because that's the nature of money. It should be private and only you should control it.
There are people that do unfortunately use the degree of anonymity that blockchain provides to do illicit things, to do illegal things.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that does exist, even if it isn't the majority of people. And I tend to believe it isn't the majority of people. I think people really want privacy and security, and government has been a little too invasive over the years, to put it lightly. But for the bad actors out there that do exist, they create problems. Is there a way to curb that? Even though these things are being built on Monero or through Haven and have all these features, is there any kind of way to deter the bad actors, or is that something that you have to live with as a trade-off?
I think I think it's blown out of proportion, frankly. I think a lot of people use Monero and other privacy projects just because they care about their privacy. I mean, it's the same thing as Cash, right? Plenty of people use Cash every single day to do illicit activities. Some of them are caught, some of them aren't. But it's a trade-off that we make for giving people, private fungible money. I think, we're in the business of creating tools for people to be able to protect their privacy. We're not in the business of policing people's behaviors or activities or opinions. And I think that's a bright line that we need to draw, because the vast majority of people that use crypto are using it for, the same reason you and I are using it. We're making an investment. There's a technology we think that's cool that we want to take advantage of. We want to make a trade. We want to make some money. Those are all totally valid reasons to use crypto. And I think that represents the majority of people in the space. And they shouldn't be penalized for wanting to protect their privacy either, just because there's a few bad actors in the space.
Yeah, I think you actually make a good point there. A lot of people do use just straight up fiat hard cash when they want to do something illicit, because you can't track it at all. Yeah. There's no digital trace. I guess it makes sense. I mean, there's probably reasons why the Obama administration would give billions of dollars in pallets of cash to Iran versus give them some Monero, which would have been easier, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, the thing that I think has grown our community and made Haven a really interesting project that people have stuck with. It's been really hard. Like the actual technical challenge was a lot harder than we thought. Monero is a really tricky code base. It's not plug and play like Ethereum. And it takes, a lot of work and a lot of education for a developer to even get up to speed on how to integrate something using Monero. But that's why it's important, right? Monero has really cool features. And I mean, the coolest one is stealth addresses, right? When you send something on Monero or Haven, you can't see the address. When you go look up the block explorer, you can't see the address that sent it, and you can't see the address that received it. And just, as a basic cryptography innovation, that's really exceptional. And that's sort of why we chose, Monero, because it uses privacy as a default, right? Every transaction by default is private. And that really secures people's money and gives people confidence to use it for anything that they want to keep private.
How would you compare Monero to other competition like ZK Snark's technology with like Zcash, for example?
Yeah.
What are some of the similarities and differences? And do you think one is better? Or do you think they're both great, but just in different ways?
So there are some significant differences. I think there's room for lots of different privacy projects in this space and lots of different ways of going about it. Zero knowledge proofs is a really cool technology that can be used in some fascinating ways. I think the biggest difference between Monero and Haven, which uses the Monero code base, and something like Zcash, is that you have default privacy with Monero, and you have essentially an opt-in model with Zcash. And I think the vast majority of transactions using Zcash are still sort of opt-out transactions versus opt-in to privacy. And that, that's a solution that a lot of people can use, and that's fine. I think that is not as an effective privacy solution. I think if you care about protecting, your addresses, your balances, and where you store your wealth and your money, you should take your privacy seriously, and it should be done on a chain that does privacy by default. But I don't, I think the more the merrier. If there's projects out there building in the privacy space, I think we should support all of them. But I think it's important to sort of recognize some of the differences, so that people know what they're getting into when they use them.
Yeah, people don't talk about Monero as often as they used to in the past. Do you think that more people are going to start building on Monero? Do you think that the ecosystem is growing and that it's a very viable place to build large scale privacy and anonymity type projects?
I do, yes. I mean, I'm not sure if it means more people are going to be building on Monero, because building on Monero is really hard, as we discovered. I think I know more people are using Monero. So if you go look at sort of the daily transactions using Monero versus Bitcoin, Ethereum, other projects, they are gaining ground and fast over the last year or so. And it's not, it's kind of a different philosophy for people in the Monero and Haven community, people that use Monero and Haven. Most people are not in it to go, flip NFTs and make a quick buck and get out. And I think most people in these communities are here for the long term and care about having a secure way to store their wealth and control it and keep it private. And it's just a different kind of person or investor or trader that values those things. But I absolutely think that more and more people are understanding, the fundamental difference between public chains and private chains, and why they should, at least in part, be using private chains more often. And I think we're seeing that sort of in real time.
Tell me a bit more about the other stable assets that you mentioned. I know you mentioned precious metals, you mentioned other currencies. Give me a bit more insight onto that.
Yeah, so I think we have it's either 11 or 12 right now. I should have the list in front of me. And eventually we will, I think, expand that list and create other private assets based on some of the things that our community wants. But really, it's just a basket of stablecoins, right? So it's private XUSD, private Euro, private Pound, XGBP, the Swiss franc XCHF, and I should know the others off the top of my head. I don't. Those are the actual currencies that we have a private version of on the chain, and you can go back and forth from XUSD to those other currencies. And then the private assets, gold and silver, were things that our community sort of really were excited about in the beginning as an option for long-term investing, but in a way that's completely private, right? It's essentially a synthetic on our chain that can track the price of gold or silver, which is really cool. And we did the same thing with XBTC, which is our synthetic Bitcoin. So essentially, if you hold XUSD in your wallet, you can there's a couple different ways you can get XUSD. You can either burn XHV and it'll just be there in your wallet, in your Haven vault, or you can go buy XUSD in exchanges. There's a few listings out there, and we're sort of growing that through decentralized exchanges as well. So once you get your hands on XUSD, the private stablecoin, you can convert that into XBTC, and you can essentially invest in Bitcoin using Monero privacy, which is a really cool, different tool that has never existed before. So yeah, I think we're really focused on XUSD right now, building out that ecosystem, growing liquidity for it, finding more decentralized exchanges that will, that can integrate it and use it. And I think once we do that and grow XUSD, the ability to use all these other assets will only grow sort of alongside with it, which is our goal.
Yeah, how can people get set up? Do you guys have like an app-based wallet? Do you work with existing exchanges? Where can people go if they want to start using these private assets?
Yeah, go to the Haven website, havenprotocol.org, and you can download the wallet. It's called a vault on the website, but it's just a simple wallet. You can use a desktop version to send XHV to, and in that wallet you can convert to XUSD and the other assets. There's a web-based vault as well. We're working right now with Cake Wallet, which is the sort of standalone Monero wallet. They have a fantastic native mobile UI for Android and iOS. They're going to be integrating Haven and Haven's so XHV and the stablecoins XUSD and others into Cake Wallet, which will be an excellent way to sort of use a mobile interface for it. So yeah, going to the website and downloading that vault, going to our Discord, which we have probably like 9,000 members. It's a really active community. It's an awesome place. People happy to answer questions and help you walk through it. But the app is pretty simple. You download the wallet, you buy on an exchange like KuCoin, and you send it over to the wallet. It's pretty simple, like other cryptos, except it is private, which is nice.
Cake wallet, like a cake, like you eat a cake.
Yes, correct.
Isn't it funny how everything is food based in this industry?
Yeah, there's a lot of it, right? There's a lot. Yeah, and I'll give one other plug too. I think we're one of the challenges that we found over the last year or two as we've finished building the product and actually making sure that it works and that it's secure and that people can use it. The next challenge has been making sure that there's liquidity in places for people to buy it and to get it. And the biggest challenge is that most centralized exchanges don't want to touch privacy projects with a 10-foot pole, which is a shame. I think I'm sure they have their legal reasons for doing it, but it's made it hard for Monero as well to sort of grow to a place where all these users that are on centralized exchanges can get it easily. There's a reason that Coinbase doesn't list Monero, which is unfortunate, but we think that the sort of future in crypto is in decentralized exchanges, and there's a few of them out there that are really interesting. Obviously, there's a bunch in the Ethereum ecosystem. The one we're working with right now to integrate to is Thorchain. Rune is their token, and they're sort of the first, I think, most innovative true cross-chain decentralized exchange where you can swap native Bitcoin with native Ethereum in a trustless, decentralized way. They've built something really cool, and they're going to be integrating Haven and Monero as well, which will be a really great way to get people to use Haven in a way that doesn't have to rely on centralized exchanges.
A lot of pressure because kind of in the US right now, it's illegal for them to list anything that's a privacy-based coin, Monero, Zcash, anything along the likes. It's very risky for them to do that, and they have big models, lots of customers, lots of money. So can't necessarily blame them, but the way DeFi is going, it's fairly easy to get access to any of this kind of stuff.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so and that's our
what
mission.
Is your
the goal of Haven is to actually educate people that we even exist, right? It's a small project. It's really new, but we think it's something that's pretty innovative, and when people start to go down the rabbit hole and use it for themselves, they'll see why we think it's important.
Yeah, with that goal in mind, what's your guys' roadmap look like the rest of the year? What things are you guys planning to roll out? Are you excited about that you want people to be aware of?
I think the Thorchain integration is the biggest project we've been working on over the last few months, and that Thorchain does not have any privacy coins integrated yet because they are pretty technically challenging. It's not like just tossing up another ERC20 project. It's integrating the entire Monero code base essentially. So our developers have been working on that forever. We just submitted a couple of weeks ago sort of our final design proposal to them. They're doing some testing. We expect it to be in their stage net in the next few weeks to a month, and live on Thorchain shortly after that. So that's our short-term project. And this integration with Cake Wallet that I mentioned is also something that's really important that our community has been asking for a while, and that's almost done, also in testing. I think our longer-term goals are finding ways to become more decentralized as a project. We're a pretty small team with a few developers that have spent a ton of time, learning Monero and building out Haven's private stablecoins. And we want to attract more developers. We want the governance of the projects long-term to be more decentralized and run more by our community, which is growing every day. We have an awesome community, so we want them to really, take charge of the direction of the project and what the future holds for Haven. So decentralizing is probably the longer term goal that we're going to spend some time on too. So
where's your community base mostly if people want to jump in and chat and learn more about Haven? Is it Discord, Telegram, elsewhere?
We have both a Discord and a Telegram community. You can both are active. Discord is probably more active, and the developers and sort of community managers spend most of the time on Discord, and that's where you can ask questions, get help the fastest, but we have a great Telegram group as well. And both of those are on the website if you want to check them out.
Nice. Are you guys on social media? Are you on social media or are you completely anonymous?
I am not personally, but I help out with our Twitter account. It's at HavenXHV, and that's a pretty active place on Twitter for us.
Got it. Guys, go check out Haven Protocol. Check them out on social media, the website, all their platforms, Discord, Telegram. Go down below, like the video, and subscribe to the podcast. Ahawk, thank you for taking the time to come on. Really do appreciate it. Learned so much about privacy. Haven't really talked about that topic in a while, so it's kind of cool. It's also cool what you guys are doing with stablecoins and privacy. I think that's fairly new. So that's cool for people to know, and I think that's good information, and they're going to really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And let us know if you have any questions. If your viewers have questions about Haven, you know where to send them, and appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Have a good day, man. Stay safe and talk soon.
You too. Take care.